At my son's funeral, my daughter-in-law whispered loudly, "I am not going to take care of that old witch." Yet before passing away, my son had transferred all his assets into my name through his will. I am glad you are here. Stay with me until the end of this story and share from which city you are watching. I want to see how far it has reached. The funeral home was filled with the scent of lilies and sadness. I stood beside my son's coffin, my hand resting on the polished mahogany, struggling to grasp how Stephen, my strong, lively boy, barely 35 years old, could lie there so motionless. The doctor called it a sudden heart failure. Sometimes it happens even in young, healthy people, he said, as if that explanation could fill the emptiness shaped like Stephen that now pierced my soul. Friends and relatives moved around me like shadows, dressed in black, their voices muted. I had been receiving condolences for hours, my face frozen behind the mask we wear when we try not to completely fall apart. My fingers traced the wooden edge of the coffin, the last physical barrier between my son and me. Olivia said, "Mr." Ramirez, Stephen's lawyer, gently touching my elbow. "When you are ready, we need to discuss certain matters." I nodded, stunned. Nothing mattered anymore, least of all legal issues. But I followed him to a small room away from the rows of people and the whispers of comfort. It was then that I saw Lauren, my daughter-in-law, curled up in a corner with her sister. My son had been so deeply infatuated with her since they started dating 10 years ago. I saw the way he looked at her, as if she was the answer to a lifelong question he had been asking himself. I was about to approach when her voice, sharper than I had ever heard, shattered the muffled silence of the 4th floor. "You know they are going to read the will tomorrow, right?" she whispered. However, the acoustics carried her words clearly to where I was standing. I just hope he did not leave anything important to Olivia. Her sister muttered something I could not quite catch. "Is that so? I mean, I am his wife. Everything should go to me." Lauren's voice was soaked with a bitterness I had never seen before. I had spent 7 years with him, putting up with his mother, always meddling, expressing opinions about everything from the house to how to raise the children. I froze with my hand still resting on the doorframe. "And what if now he plans to move in with you?" her sister asked. Lauren laughed. She actually laughed, right there at my son's funeral. "I'd rather die. I mean it." Her voice fell even lower. Yet in the quiet of the 4th floor, I could still hear the venom in every word. Now it is my turn to pick up the pieces. I have to raise our children alone. But no way am I going to care for that old woman who is bitter and spiteful. She'd always seen me as the meddlesome, overbearing mother-in-law. I had tried so hard to respect their marriage and only offer help when asked. I took care of my grandson twice a week so that Lauren could continue with her part-time job. I used to bring food when Stephen had to stay late. I believed we shared a good relationship. "The reading of the will be tomorrow at 10 o'clock, Mr. Ramirez said without any hint of what he had just heard. He said, "I wanted to prepare you, Olivia. Stephen made some changes recently." I tried to focus on his words while Lauren's harsh remarks still echoed in my mind. "Changes?" I asked, my voice sounding distant even to myself. "Changes?" "Yes, about 3 weeks ago. He transferred almost everything to your name, Olivia." "No, to Lauren," I responded in confusion. "What?" I looked at him, unable to understand. "That makes no sense. Lauren is his wife, and the children—" Ramirez explained quietly, "He left trust funds for the children. They will be released when they turn 25, but the house, his investments, the insurance money, all of it is for you. He was very clear about that." My mind was spinning. Why would Stephen do such a thing? He had always been thoughtful, cautious with his choices. This was not a random decision. Behind us, Lauren had seen me. Her expression shifted from annoyance to a rehearsed show of pain, completely erasing the contempt she had shown earlier. but I had already seen the real Lauren, the one who appears when she thinks no one is watching. Olivia said this as she came closer with open arms to hug me. I'm so sorry. We are all trying to understand this terrible loss. As she held me tightly, her scent overwhelmed me. The only thought running through my mind was that my son was aware. Somehow, my son perfectly understood who she was. And now I was beginning to grasp it too. The reading of the will was everything I feared, and far worse. Lauren sat across from me at the conference table. Her face was a storm of restrained fury. Meanwhile, Mr. Ramirez confirmed what he had already told me at the funeral. Stephen had altered his will just 3 weeks before his passing, leaving almost everything to me instead of her. This cannot be legal, Lauren exclaimed, her impeccably manicured nails digging into the leather folder she had brought along. Clearly, she was not thinking clearly. I assure you, Mrs. Carson, your husband was fully of sound mind and body when he made these changes, Mr. Ramirez said calmly as someone experienced in numerous family disputes. His decisions were very firm. The journey back home was a blur. Lauren stormed out of the office, refusing to speak with me. Part of me wanted to approach her, to understand, to keep some connection with my grandchildren. But the memory of her words at the funeral stopped me. I am not going to care for that old Megara. It kept echoing in my head. 3 days later, I found myself in Stephen's office at his house, surrounded by the remnants of my son's life. Lauren had reluctantly handed me the key. I kept telling myself that I could not face going through his things yet. The house felt empty and deserted, even though Lauren and the children were still living there. They had gone to visit their parents for a few days, giving me the chance to gather Stephen's personal belongings. My fingers brushed over his desk, and I remembered how he used to sit there on Sunday afternoons while the kids napped, absorbed in whatever project captivated him at the time. That week, the leather chair still held the shape of his body. It was then that I noticed the drawer slightly open, with a small key still in the lock. Stephen had always been extremely careful about security, so he would never leave it unlocked unless there was a reason. My hands trembled as I pulled the drawer open, revealing a thick manila folder labeled simply as financial records. I told myself not to pry, but something urged me to look inside. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Bank statements, loan applications, bank notifications, dozens of documents from the past 2 years, and attached to the front was a handwritten note in Stephen's clear and precise handwriting. It read, "Mom, if you are reading this, I am very sorry. I should have told you sooner." Tears blurred my vision as I sifted through the papers. The story they told was heartbreaking. Lauren had been systematically emptying their accounts for months, maybe even years. Cash withdrawals at casinos, online betting sites, lavish purchases paid for with cash and loans, so many loans taken out in Stephen's name. Some carried interest rates that made me gasp. "Oh, Stephen," I whispered. My heart broke once again. "Why didn't you tell me?" As if in response, a small USB drive slipped between the papers. I plugged it into Stephen's computer and found a single video file dated just 3 weeks ago, exactly when he changed his will. My son's face filled the screen, looking tired yet resolute. "Mom," he began, and his voice unleashed another wave of pain inside me. "If you are watching this, things with Lauren have probably worsened, and you are discovering everything in the hardest way. I am sorry." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. He revealed that Lauren had been struggling with gambling for around 6 months. At first, I thought we could get through it. I took her to therapy. We separated our finances, yet it was deeper than I imagined. He sighed heavily. "Last week, I found out she has been borrowing money from questionable people who do not exactly use legal means to collect debts. Today, I am changing my will," he continued. "If anything happens to me, you must be protected. The house, the investments, everything should go to you. I trust that you will take care of the children. Lauren. His voice cracked. I love her, Mom. I still love her. But I can no longer trust her with our future. The video ended and I remained seated in the darkening office, feeling how the pieces finally fell into place. The sudden cardiac arrest that took my son, so healthy and athletic until then. The mysterious alterations in his will, the poison in Lauren's words during the funeral had played its part. The stress from Lauren's betrayal leading to his heart attack. Or was there something more sinister beneath it all? A sound from the front of the house startled me. Footsteps in the hallway. Lauren had returned. I slammed the laptop shut and quickly gathered the documents, sliding them into my bag. Whatever was happening, I had to be cautious for my own safety, for the future of my grandchildren, and for Stephen's memory. Olivia called Lauren with a voice as sweet as honey, so different from the woman I had seen at the funeral. Are you still here? I brought dinner. I took a deep breath and left the office, clutching my son's secrets close to my chest. I was just about to leave, I said, forcing a smile. How thoughtful of you bringing food. Her eyes lingered briefly on my bag before meeting my face again. Her smile never reached her eyes. Well, we are family, aren't we? Now more than ever, we must stick together. I followed her into the kitchen as a plan took shape in my mind. My son had tried to protect me. Now it was my turn to safeguard what he had left behind. 2 months after Stephen's funeral, my world had shrunk to the size of my living room. The phone rarely rang. Invitations to community events stopped coming. My weekly bridge group informed me regretfully that they were reorganizing. According to them, there was no longer any room for me. I knew exactly who was behind all this. Lauren had always been popular in our small community, charming, beautiful, skilled at portraying herself as the perfect wife and mother, and now just as adept at acting like the grieving widow cruelly stripped of her inheritance by a greedy mother-in-law. Did you hear what Olivia did to poor Lauren? I overheard Mrs. Pembroke whispering to another woman at the supermarket last week. Olivia kept everything after Stephen died, leaving Lauren and the poor children almost nothing. And that, even though Lauren took care of Olivia when she broke her hip last year. I left my shopping cart and walked out without buying anything, my cheeks burning with shame. The story Lauren had created had nothing to do with reality. She visited me exactly twice during my recovery, and both times it was because Stephen brought her. But the community swallowed everything without question. The worst part was what happened with my grandchildren, Renata, 9 years old, and Bruno, 6. They were the light of my life before Stephen passed away. I used to see them 3 or 4 times a week. Now my calls went unanswered, my messages ignored. When I finally managed to talk to them, they were distant and defensive. Last weekend, I confronted Lauren. When Stephen brought the children for a visit, which was already unusual, he said while checking his watch, "You will have them for only 2 hours. I have to take them to a birthday party afterward," I whispered softly, making sure the children could not hear from the yard. "Lauren, we need to discuss what is happening. Why are you turning everyone against me? Why are you pushing me away from the children?" His face suddenly changed. The friendly expression vanished, revealing the cold calculation behind it. "I do not know what you mean, Olivia. Perhaps people are finally seeing who you really are, a controlling and selfish woman who never allowed her son to live his own life." "That is not true, and you know it," I protested. "Stephen altered his will because he found out about what you were doing with your little scheme." "Scheme?" She laughed, but I noticed a flicker of panic in her eyes. "Is that the story you are telling? My God, Olivia, listen to yourself. First you steal my inheritance, and now you invent addictions. No wonder no one wants to be near you." She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a threatening whisper. "Let me make one thing very clear. Those children are mine. If you want to see them again, you better keep your crazy accusations to yourself and start returning Stephen's belongings to their rightful place, with me." That night, after they left, I was alone in the kitchen with a cup of tea cooling in front of me. The silence of the house wrapped around me like a heavy cloak. For the first time since Stephen passed away, I allowed myself to cry. Deep, broken sobs that left me gasping for air. The isolation was taking its toll. I started doubting myself, wondering if maybe I was the villain in this story. Perhaps I had been too controlling. Maybe Stephen had changed his will for other reasons. Perhaps Lauren's gambling issue was not as serious as I thought. The next morning, I found myself in Dr. Robles' office. He had been the family doctor for 20 years. He witnessed Stephen grow from a teenager into a man. Surely he would not turn against me. Yet during the examination, his demeanor was cold and clinical, far from the warmth he once showed. "You seem anxious, Olivia," he said, writing in my file without meeting my gaze. "Are you having trouble sleeping?" I admitted I was. I had been under a lot of stress since Stephen's passing. He nodded, still avoiding eye contact. "Lauren mentioned she's worried about your mental health. She says you have made strange accusations and seem confused about reality and imagination." I felt a chill run through me. "Did Lauren talk to you about me?" He answered plainly, "She is concerned. She believes you might be in the early stages of dementia, paranoia, mood swings, irrational behavior about the will." "Not that," I stammered, struggling to find the words, shocked at how much Lauren had poisoned even this relationship. Finally, Dr. Robles looked me in the eyes. "I'm going to prescribe something for your anxiety, and I would like you to see a neurologist just to rule out anything serious." I left with a prescription I never intended to fill, and an overwhelming certainty that Lauren was not only ruining my reputation, but also my trustworthiness. If she convinced everyone I was losing my mind, what would stop her from contesting the will on that very basis? As I walked toward my car, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Lauren. Meet me at Riverside Cafe tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Come alone." Lauren's sister wanted to speak with me. My heart raced as I read the message again. After so many months of loneliness, had I finally found an ally? The Café La Cosecha was on the outskirts of town, far enough that Lauren and her friends would not spot me there. I arrived early and picked a corner table, back against the wall so I could watch everyone who came in. The waitress brought me a coffee with a genuine smile, free of judgment or pity. It was the first sincere smile I had received in weeks. Right at 10, Claudia walked in. She was Lauren's younger sister, but the two could not have been more different. While Lauren was always polished and perfect, Claudia appeared relaxed and genuine. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her dark hair pulled back into a ponytail. She spotted me immediately and approached without a word, sitting down right across from me. "Did anyone notice you coming?" she asked softly. I shook my head in denial. "I find that hard to believe, Claudia. Why all the secrecy? What is going on?" She took a deep breath, nervously twirling the paper napkin in front of her. "I have wanted to talk to you since the funeral, but Lauren keeps her eyes glued to me. She knows I have never agreed with how she treats people." The waitress appeared, and Claudia ordered a coffee, patiently waiting until we were alone again to continue. "Olivia, I need you to know I believe you about everything. The bets, the loans, all of it." My hands trembled as I set the cup on the table. "Really? But how?" "Because I have seen it before." Claudia's expression grew stern. "This is not the first time. Before meeting Stephen, Lauren was engaged to a man named Derek from a wealthy family with a promising future. She nearly ruined him completely before his parents stepped in." A ringing filled my ears while Claudia talked on, explaining how Lauren had displayed the same pattern throughout her life. She sought out vulnerable people, gained their trust, and then exploited them for her own gain. Our parents allowed it, Claudia said with disgust clear in her voice. They believed her beauty and charm were gifts to secure a good future. They encouraged her to find wealthy men and do whatever it took to maintain a certain lifestyle. But she seemed to genuinely love Stephen. I protested weakly. They appeared happy together. Claudia's smile was tinged with sadness. Lauren is a remarkable actress and perhaps loved him in her own way. But when she loves, she consumes everything. She takes and takes until nothing remains. She pulled a small notebook out of her purse. I've been recording every lie she has told about you, how she manipulated the children and the community. She told our parents that you abused Stephen since he was a child and controlled him with money. I felt the injustice slam into me like a physical blow. Why would she say something like that? Claudia said bluntly, because she is desperate. Whatever Stephen uncovered must have been very serious, extremely serious. She needs that inheritance, Olivia, not just to maintain her lifestyle, but to cover her tracks. What tracks? I asked, a chill running down my spine. Claudia hesitated. I have no proof, only suspicions. But I believe some of the people Lauren asked for money are not just unsavory lenders. I think they are connected to dangerous individuals. Suddenly, the cafe felt too small, too exposed. Are you saying I should be careful? Claudia interrupted. Lauren is not spreading rumors out of mere spite. She is slowly ruining your reputation because she fears what you might expose. The same classic madness story about Lauren affected our grandmother when she caught her stealing some jewelry. My mind raced, connecting clues I had previously overlooked. The way Dr. Mayers had looked at me, the sudden rejection by the community, the strange behavior of the children. She is manipulating me, I said, recalling an article I read years ago. It made me question my own sanity. Exactly. Claudia nodded firmly. And she is very skilled at it. She has plenty of experience. I thought about all those months when I doubted myself, wondering if I was truly the antagonist in this story. Feeling that someone believed me, validating what I had experienced, was overwhelming. I could barely breathe. What should I do? I asked, hating the shakiness in my voice. Document everything, Claudia said firmly. Every odd interaction, every rumor you hear, every time she keeps you from seeing the children, and do not accept anything from her. No food, no drink, no medicine. Can you believe she didn't even finish her sentence? Claudia's expression turned serious. I no longer know what she is capable of. The Lauren I grew up with was manipulative and selfish, but I never thought it would come to this. She must be under enormous pressure to take such risks. She glanced at her watch. I have to go. Lauren thinks I'm at the gym. She pulled out a burner phone and pushed it across the table to me. Use this to contact me. My number is the only one she has. Do not use your regular phone. I wouldn't be surprised if someone is spying on your calls. As she stood up, I wondered if she was really leaving. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out and grasped my hand firmly. You are not crazy, Olivia. You are not the one to blame here. Remember that. After he left, I sat for a long time, clutching my phone as if it were my only lifeline. For the first time in many months, I experienced a feeling I had nearly forgotten. Hope. That afternoon, as I sorted through more of Stephen's documents, I stumbled upon something I had missed before, a small key taped to the back of his drawer, accompanied by a note that simply said, Storage Unit Number 17 Main Street Lock. Whatever Stephen had uncovered about Lauren, something that had led him to alter his will so dramatically, the proof might be hidden in that unit. Tomorrow, I intended to find out what my son was hiding and what it was that Lauren wanted desperately to keep secret. Holding the key in the palm of my hand, a strange calm washed over me. The fog of grief and confusion began to lift, replaced by a sharp and fierce clarity. Lauren had underestimated me, thinking I was a defenseless old woman she could manipulate as she pleased. She was about to learn how terribly wrong she was. Main Street Lock was a modest building on the edge of downtown, one of those places you could pass by 100 times without even noticing. The morning air was crisp as I parked in the nearly empty lot. The key Stephen had left clenched tightly between my fingers. My heart was pounding intensely, caught between excitement and fear about what I would find inside. The attendant barely glanced at my ID before pointing me toward unit number 17. It was a small space located at the end of a dimly lit corridor. The lock turned with a satisfying click as I lifted the metal roll-up door. Inside, everything was neatly arranged and clearly labeled. But what immediately drew my attention was a whiteboard leaning against the back wall, covered in the meticulous handwriting of Stephen. It showed a timeline spanning 3 years, meticulously documenting Lauren's actions. Cash withdrawals, casino visits, online betting accounts, unexplained absences. Each entry included dates, amounts, and sometimes even photographs. I whispered, "Hey, Stephen," as I traced the letters with my fingers. "You were investigating the case." One of the boxes was simply labeled evidence. Inside, I found bank statements, credit card bills, loan documents, all carefully filed away. However, it was the USB drive at the very bottom that made my hands tremble. I slipped it into my pocket, knowing I needed to examine it somewhere private. There was something else in the storage unit, a leather-bound journal. The first entry was dated 3 years ago, shortly after Renata's 6th birthday. The last entry had been written 4 days before Stephen's death. "Today, I confronted Lauren," the journal concluded. I showed her what I had discovered. At first, she denied everything. Then she became frantic. She says I cannot understand the pressure she has been under. She is right. I do not comprehend how someone could gamble with the future of our children, how they could get us into debt with people willing to threaten us. She begged me not to say a word, especially not to Mom. She promised she would seek help, that we could overcome this together. I want to believe her for the sake of the children. I need to believe her, yet today I changed the will just in case. If something happens to me, Mom will take care of protecting the kids. Tears blurred my vision as I closed the diary. Stephen knew everything and had confronted Lauren only 4 days before his sudden cardiac arrest. I spent hours in that storage room taking pictures of documents, reading Stephen's notes, piecing together a puzzle I never wanted to face. By the time I left, slipping the most crucial evidence into my bag, I was no longer the woman who had arrived that morning. The fog of grief and uncertainty had lifted, replaced by a cold, clear determination. Lauren had to be stopped, not just for me, but for my grandchildren. That afternoon, I called Claudia from a disposable phone. I told her I had found Stephen's evidence. My voice was firmer than it had been in months. "It is worse than we thought. I believe Lauren might be involved in Stephen's death." Claudia's gasp was unmistakable. "That is a very serious accusation, Olivia." "I know, and I don't have proof, not yet." However, Stephen confronted her about the situation just a few days before his passing. And notice how she has been deliberately working to discredit me ever since. She is terrified that I will uncover the truth. "What are you going to do?" Claudia asked. "Fight," I replied firmly. "Will you support me?" 2 days later, Claudia and I met with Dr. Carlson, a well-respected neurologist from a neighboring city, someone completely unconnected to Lauren or her social circle. I underwent a full examination, cognitive tests, brain scans, the whole process. "Mrs. Carson," Dr. Waite Carlson said when the results came in, "I can state with absolute certainty that you show no signs of dementia or cognitive decline. In fact, your mental sharpness is outstanding for a woman of any age." I requested his diagnosis in writing, and he also provided a formal statement addressing the concerns raised about my mental condition. After that, I hired a private investigator named Mauricio, recommended by Claudia. He was expensive, but with access to Stephen's funds, money was no longer an issue. "I need documentation on everything Lauren is doing," I told him. the rumors she is spreading, who she meets with, and I must find out from whom she has borrowed money. Meanwhile, I started to rebuild my social connections, beginning with Pilar, my oldest friend who had distanced herself after hearing Lauren's rumors. Simply, I said, "I have missed you." When she cautiously accepted my invitation for coffee, Pilar appeared uneasy. "I overheard some things, Olivia, about how you treated Stephen concerning the will." I slid Dr. Carlson's report across the table. "Lauren has been saying that I have dementia. This proves that it is not true. She has also claimed that I was abusive toward Stephen. I possess decades of letters, birthday cards, and photos that prove otherwise." I looked her in the eye. "She is ruining my reputation because she fears what I know." Slowly and systematically, I began to reclaim my life. I joined a new bridge club in the neighboring town. I started volunteering at the library where the chief librarian, who never liked Lauren, welcomed me warmly. I started a blog where I shared my journey as a widow, writing carefully about my grief without mentioning the dark currents beneath it. Each small victory made me stronger. Each piece of evidence Mauricio uncovered, and there were many, confirmed what I already suspected. Lauren was desperate. She was dangerous and falling apart. The final piece fell into place when Mauricio discovered who had lent Lauren money. A man named Vincent Carrera, connected to organized crime in Chicago. "She owes more than $200,000, Mauricio told me gravely. "People like that do not offer payment plans." 2 days later, I invited Lauren and the children to dinner. It was time for a confrontation, but this time I would be in control while I set the table. At night, I felt oddly calm. The doorbell rang and I straightened up, ready to face the woman who once tried to ruin me. But I was no longer a victim. This time, the truth was on my side. And even more importantly, evidence? Let the game begin, Lauren. Let it begin. It had been 3 years since that fateful dinner with Lauren. I still remember how she arrived at my house with flawless makeup and a fake smile. The children followed her like shadows. "Grandma!" shouted Renata, running to hug me. At 9 years old, she was still young enough to show affection without holding back. Bruno, who was 6, stayed back, watching me with suspicion, likely influenced by the stories Lauren had told him. Come in, I said warmly, letting them inside. Dinner was almost ready. Lauren looked around with distrust, perhaps expecting to find police or lawyers waiting to accuse her. But all she encountered was a carefully prepared meal and a grandmother eager to see her grandchildren. The confrontation came later, once the children were in the living room watching a movie. "I know everything, Lauren," I said softly, sliding a folder across the table. "The bets, the loans with bins on the line, the lies you have spread about me." Her face changed. I do not know why. "Please do not insult my intelligence," I interrupted. "Stephen documented everything before he died. I found his storage room." For a moment, I saw real fear in her eyes. Then her expression hardened. "So what? It is your word against mine. Everyone believes you are losing your mind." I smiled then, a small smile filled with satisfaction. No longer. I have a neurological report proving that I am completely healthy. I have statements from your sister about your history of manipulation. I have evidence that you owe $200,000 to a man connected to organized crime. And I have all of Stephen's documents. His hands trembled as he reached for his glass of wine. "What do you want?" "A truce?" I replied straightforwardly. "I do not want to destroy you, Lauren. I only want to be part of my grandchildren's lives. I want the rumors to stop. I want peace." She looked at me, perhaps trying to find a weakness, a lie. What if I refuse? Then I will take everything I have to the police. Gambling will not be illegal, but the loans, the criminal connection, that will catch their attention, especially considering the date of Stephen's death. "Are you accusing me of that?" Her voice rose in panic. "I am not accusing you of anything," I interrupted. I'm only presenting facts. Stephen confronted you about the gambling and the loans. 4 days before he died, he changed his will to protect the children's inheritance. Then he suffered a sudden heart event at the age of 35. Lauren collapsed onto the chair, her facade shattered. For the first time, I saw the real woman behind the mask, frightened, desperate, cornered. I did not kill him, she whispered through tears that ruined her makeup. I swear I did not. The stress, the argument we had, maybe that played a part, but I never wanted him to die on my terms. I loved him deeply. I studied his face, searching for honesty in his eyes. Even now I remain unsure if I truly believe him, yet in that moment I made a choice for peace, for my grandchildren, for my own future. I told him clearly this is what would happen. I will settle your debt through hard work, not for your sake, but to keep that kind of people away from my grandchildren. In return, you will grant me unrestricted and regular visits with Renata and Bruno. You will stop spreading rumors about me and seek help for your gambling addiction. He agreed immediately, relief evident on his face. I think he expected something much harsher. Now, 3 years later, on a warm spring afternoon, I sit in my garden watching Renata and Bruno play. They now spend weekends with me, a pact we made after Lauren completed her therapy. She still lives in Stephen's house, but it is under my name, a detail that ensures her ongoing cooperation. The rose bushes Stephen and I planted together long ago are in full bloom. Their scent fills the air as if he still walked here. Each year I add new varieties, a way to keep him alive in this corner we cherished with so much love. Grandma, look. Renata calls me, lifting a small ceramic pot. At 12, she has discovered a genuine talent for pottery, a hobby we uncovered together. I made it for Mom's birthday, she says. I smile warmly. I observe the bowl crafted with such careful attention. It looks beautiful. My love will surely be delighted. Bruno, who is now 9 years old, lies on the grass reading a book about dinosaurs. He is so absorbed that it is hard for me to interrupt him. He resembles Stephen so much when he was a child that sometimes I find it hard to breathe when I see him. Our relationship with Lauren remains complicated. Trust once broken never fully heals. Yet we have reached a certain peace, a silent understanding. She knows I keep her secrets, and I know she is capable of a harsh lie. Still, both of us love these children dearly. That shared love has become the foundation of this truce. The money that once caused so much conflict now serves a worthy purpose. I created trust funds for Renata and Bruno, just as Stephen would have wanted to renovate my house to have special spaces for them. A ceramic studio for Renata and a reading nook for Bruno. I also set aside resources for Lauren to continue her treatment, ensuring she can face the addiction that nearly destroyed our lives. Sometimes I wonder what Stephen would think of this arrangement. Would he approve of the agreement I reached with Lauren? Would he understand why I chose not to pursue his death further? I like to believe he would. My son was always practical and had a huge heart. He changed his will not out of bitterness, but out of love to protect what mattered most. Last week, I finally fulfilled a promise I made several years ago. We had always talked about traveling to Italy, exploring the rolling hills of Tuscany, and visiting the villages where our ancestors lived with Olivia and Bruno. By my side, I scattered a small portion of their ashes beneath an ancient olive tree, whose silvery leaves shimmered in the breeze. "Is Dad happy here, Grandma?" Bruno asked, squeezing my hand. "I think so," I replied, as the wind carried the ashes across the Italian fields. "But he is even happier knowing we are together and looking out for each other. The children and I have started a new tradition. Every year on Stephen's birthday, we plant something fresh in my garden, a tree, a rose bush, or a flower bed with his favorite blooms. This living tribute grows more beautiful with every season, nurtured by our hands and cherished memories. Life after loss is not about forgetting, not at all. It is always about forgiving. It means finding a way to move forward, honoring what was lost while embracing what still remains. My life's garden was devastated when Stephen passed away and when Lauren betrayed me. But slowly, season after season, it has started to flourish again. It is different, certainly, yet no less beautiful. Tonight, as the children help me prepare dinner amidst laughter, squabbles, and the wonderful chaos that is family, I feel Stephen's presence in the rhythm of our daily lives. He is here, in Olivia's smile, in Bruno's thoughtful frown. In that legacy of love, which no falsehood could entirely erase, lies their final gift to me, this second chance to have a family. This peace earned through tremendous effort is something I intend to cherish every moment of. 3 years after I penned those words, my garden was already blooming with flowers. Renata has grown into a young girl. Bruno is beginning to grow taller than I am, yet inside me there still exists a silent pain. My life is no longer like it once was. I am no longer the grieving, trembling mother clinging to the few memories of Stephen, but the grandmother who stands strong, serving as a shelter from the sun for 2 orphaned children. When their mother fell and their father was no longer there, I once believed I could never love anyone as I loved my son. However, Renata and Bruno proved me wrong. Each morning, the sound of small feet descending the stairs, the aroma of cereal and toasted bread, the sleepy yet bright eyes of the 2 children have become the rhythm of my days. Renata resembles her father more with every passing day. Dark brown eyes, an intelligent forehead, a calm and profound personality, she has the soul of an artist. Her skillful hands shape clay into lively figures. I turned the old laundry room into a pottery workshop for her and hung her first creations on the kitchen wall as if they were the most precious paintings. Bruno is energetic and inquisitive, always carrying a book. Dinosaurs and spaceships captivate his imagination. Greek myths. Once I asked him, "Why do you love myths so much, son?" He answered, "Because in them, everyone loses something, yet still becomes a hero." I turned away so he would not see the tears forming in his grandmother's eyes. Lauren, after some time in therapy and a binding agreement, kept her promise. She still lives in Stephen's old house, now under my name, and visits the children according to the scheduled times. Our relationship remains cold but stable enough to protect the children from harm. I do not know if Lauren truly feels remorse, but at least she no longer poses a threat to my small family. The first days as a full-time grandmother were tough. There were nights when Bruno had a very high fever, and I stayed awake all night, wiping his forehead with a damp cloth, holding my breath and praying just as I did when caring for Stephen. Sometimes Renata acted out in a teen rebellion, yelling, "You are not my mother," only to cover her face afterward, crying with regret. At times, I broke down in my room, holding Stephen's photo frame tightly, whispering, "Son, I am trying, but I am so tired." I lost my parents very early, lost the only husband I ever had at 50 years old, and then lost Stephen, the last one in my heart. Some afternoons I would sit on the garden swing, watching the children play and feeling an emptiness, like a house without light. I loved them more than myself. However, love cannot erase the emptiness carved in my heart by loss and betrayal. I hide that sorrow behind steaming bowls of chicken soup, Halloween costumes, and handmade birthday cakes created every year. I learned to nurture without forcing. Not to mother again, but to be a compassionate grandmother, strong enough to offer support, yet distant enough to allow my grandchildren to grow independently. I taught Renata how to make red bean soup, which Stephen loved so much. With Bruno, I built a model of the solar system that we hung from his bedroom ceiling. They call me Grandma Treasure, a nickname half playful, half sincere, like a thread connecting the pure world of childhood with an adult marked by wounds. Every birthday of Stephen, we uphold the tradition of planting a tree in the garden. Now, after 3 years, the garden blooms with flowers and fruit trees, roses, lilacs, orange trees, peaches. Each name holds a memory. This tree is from the first year without Dad. I chose it for its red leaves, the color of the coat Dad liked, said Renata as she planted a red maple at the age of 10. I could only hold her tightly without replying. Once I asked Bruno, "Do you remember your dad?" He nodded. "But you are like Dad. You know everything. You never leave me." I turned away, tears falling silently onto the soft hair of the child. I was not alone forever either. But that belongs to another part of the story about someone who appeared unexpectedly, bringing a warm light that slipped through the cracks of my memories. Before that, I only had myself, and those 2 children were my entire world. I believed I would live like this, calm and peaceful with the 2 little ones until the end of my days. But then I met Miguel, and a branch of late spring blossomed. Not with love, but with presence. I met him one autumn afternoon while taking books to the public library. It was drizzling slightly. He wore a gray woolen hat and held a book close, the invisible light that Bruno begged me to read with him. The children were at a friend's house, and I was taking advantage of some quiet time for myself. I did not expect that seemingly ordinary afternoon to open a new chapter in my life, already tinted with sorrow. He was at the counter reading the newspaper, his silver hair carefully combed, glasses slipping down his nose, deeply focused on the sports section. When I clumsily dropped a pile of flyers about children's books, he turned to help me pick them up. "Grandchildren?" he asked in a deep, clear voice with the calm tone of someone who has lived long enough not to rush. I smiled. "A girl and a boy." My daughter could not, so my son gave me 2 at once. He nodded. His eyes brightened. "I have a granddaughter, but she is in Seattle. Last year, she still called. This year, he only sends pictures through messages. I'm already old. People are busy." In his eyes, I recognized a familiar sorrow. The silence is not loud, but persistent. Like me. Like those who have loved deeply and lost greatly. From that moment on, we started to get to know each other gradually. We met at the library, at the small bakery at the end of the street, or when I took Bruno to the secondhand bookstore, where he used to volunteer. His name was Miguel. He had been a literature teacher. He retired more than 10 years ago. His wife passed away when he was 62 years old, and his son settled in Europe. He did not speak much about his past, but enough for me to understand that he had lived a full life. Then suddenly he felt lost when nobody at home called him father, brother, or grandfather anymore. I do not know exactly when our casual talks became a habit. Maybe it was after he brought me a basket of fresh oranges from an old friend's garden, saying those oranges' juice tastes sweeter than store-bought ones. It could also have been after the afternoon we sat together reading Lorca's poetry. He read it in Spanish. I read the English translation. Then we both stayed silent for a long time, facing a verse about death and silence. We did not speak much about the past because it was unnecessary. Some things are understood through the eyes. Through unspoken understanding, I did not share all the details about what had happened. The matters involving Lauren, Stephen, and the house where I first learned to be a grandmother remained untold. Yet I revealed to him that I had lost my son. He nodded as if he already knew, hearing what I struggled to say in the pauses of my voice. Once Renata asked me with a tone both curious and cautious, "Is Mr. Miguel your boyfriend grandmother?" I laughed heartily and pulled her close. "No, dear, he is a friend. Like having someone who listens without judging and reminds the grandmother she is not alone anymore." Miguel grew close to the 2 little ones without ever imposing himself. He was simply there. He taught Renata how to read musical notes and helped Bruno assemble a small model of an airplane engine. Sometimes he made chamomile tea with me, and we would sit on the porch listening as the wind whispered through the rose bushes that Stephen and I had planted. This is not love or a substitute for the one who is gone. It is just a hand always ready to hold mine when needed, a genuine laugh on chilly evenings, a small mirror reflecting the part of me I forgot I was once more than a mother, a grandmother. When Bruno turned 10, he gave me a watercolor painting showing Miguel and me sitting at the table, surrounded by trees and steaming glasses. "You are not sad anymore," Bruno said, "because you have someone to play chess with." I simply held him close without a word. Why would I feel sorrowful when I lived in a home filled with the laughter of children, the scent of freshly baked cake, and the warm afternoon light shining on the silver hair of the friend who had stood by me through the long winter of my life? A year later, Stephen moved to a small apartment a few blocks away from my house. Not to live together, not to take care of me. We kept our private lives, our necessary silences. However, he came to my home every Wednesday afternoon. He baked cakes, read the newspaper, taught Renata some words in Spanish, and helped Bruno solve tricky puzzles. Sometimes he brought his old guitar and played some classic boleros. Occasionally, I lent him Lauren's jacket when the cold settled in. Other times, we both sat quietly, listening to the rain falling on the roof. I no longer ask life for anything. I do not seek passionate love or rosy promises. What I found is peace, and this peace grows like a small plant, quietly but steadily. Whenever someone asks me, "Olivia, are you okay?" I smile sincerely. I am fine. I have some wonderful children, a beautiful garden, and a friend. One who has never asked me who I must be to deserve love. Sometimes life tears us away from our roots. We lose everything in the blink of an eye and remain standing like a bare tree, wondering how to keep breathing when everything hurts. I lost my son. I lost trust and calm. I found myself surrounded by lies. Betrayals and silences weighed more than 1,000 words. But today, after going through everything, after enduring the harsh words of a daughter-in-law who vowed she would never care for that old witch, after being labeled crazy, selfish, accused of stealing what was rightfully mine and taken out of love, I can say I am no longer the same woman. I've come to understand that truth has deep roots, that lies may seem to blossom faster, that appearances deceive everyone, yet in the end, what is real triumphs. A mother who loves with all her heart can become the pillar of a broken family, the guiding light for 2 orphan children who needed a safe place to grow up. I also learned that love does not always return in the form it left. Losing a child does not mean stopping loving or ceasing to be a mother. It means transforming that love into something else, into tenderness for the grandchildren, courage to protect them, and wisdom to guide them. Renata and Bruno showed me there is always something worth living for, even when everything seems lost. I realized a romantic story is not necessary to feel accompanied. Sometimes all it takes is a kind presence, a shared cup of tea in silence, a voice that neither asks nor demands, but simply exists. Miguel did not come to fill a void. He came to remind me that I am still a woman, that not everything is over, that I can still laugh without guilt and feel without fear. Life never returned to being the same. It never will. Yet I discovered something far stronger than the elusive, perfect happiness we all chase. I found peace, and that peace was grown by me. With tired hands, yes, but determined ones. I watered it with tears. I nurtured it with patience, and now it blossoms in every giggle of my grandchildren, in every tree we planted, in every night I fall asleep knowing I did what was right. It was not easy. There were times when I doubted myself, moments when I felt alone, broken, betrayed, but there were also moments of redemption. People who reached out to me, truths that came to light, justice that carved its path through darkness. Now I want to ask you, the one reading this from your home, your office, your bed, or your favorite cafe, if you had been in my place, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent to keep the peace? Would you have fought even if everyone thought you were crazy? Would you have given up when left alone? When the world stood with the one who betrayed you? Or like me, would you have gotten back up? Because that is the real question this story I share wants to leave with you. What are you made of when everything but your name, your memories, and your truth is gone? Tell me. Comment from which city you are reading this. I want to know how far this story has traveled. This wound turned into a scar, this garden reborn in bloom. Because one thing I learned is that a story told with soul lives on endlessly. It can become a seed planted in someone else's heart, and perhaps, just perhaps, that seed will bloom with love and remembrance. Olivia, if this story has touched your heart, please support us by liking and subscribing to the channel so you won't miss upcoming heartfelt tales. Thank you for listening, for understanding, and for staying with us until the very last word. Every sign of support is a quiet message saying that stories told from the soul still have a place in this world.